Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Center for Biodiversity and Conservation Studies, I welcome you all for today's session. And before we move any forward, please accept my apologies for a change in the schedule. Due to some very urgent situation, Ms. Subhadra Devi, Madam, she won't be able to join us today for the talk. But I am really glad to save the day. Dr. Srinivasulu has agreed to engage the session today. I'll take a couple of minutes to introduce Dr. Srinivasulu. He's the assistant professor in Department of Zoology, Osmania University. He's a research head of Wildlife Biology and Taxonomy Lab in the Department of Zoology, Osmania University. He's the curator of Natural History Museum, Osmania University, and also the director for Center for Biodiversity and Conservation Studies, Osmania University. He's also the director for Osmania Technology Business Incubator, coordinator IQAC, and also coordinator for RUSA 2.0 program in Osmania University. He has many accolades to his name, including he's a fellow of Linnean Society of London, UK, and he's also the fellow of Zoological Society of London, UK. He was awarded his PhD degree in 2000, and from the year 2002 to 2005, he was a CSIR postdoctoral fellow. And for the next 2 years, he served as a scientist D in a School of Environmental Science at the University of Delhi. And from 2007 onwards, he is assistant professor at Osmania University. He's a naturalist, tetrapod biologist, and a taxonomist. He has conducted many research programs in most parts of India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. He has visited Denmark, UK, and Philippines for research workshops and training. He has executed 4 major research projects and currently executing 1 major research project on bat studies. And he was successful in getting Indo-UK projects, including UGC UCRI in 2004 and DST UCRI in the year 2017. He has 7 research scholars who have already completed their PhD research under his supervision, and 5 more are currently executing their PhD research under him. He has published 151 research papers in peer-reviewed international and national journals, 132 online resources on IUCN Red List database. He has also published, he is the author of 12 books, including 1 title each published by Springer USA and CRC Press USA. He also has the highest impact factor for 41.02 in Science Journal. He is a member of 16 academic and professional bodies of national and international repute. He is the expert member of Telangana State Biodiversity Board, Regional Red List Authority for South Asia, and for IUCN, he is a member of Bat Specialist Group, Viper Specialist Group, Amphibian Specialist Group, and Conservation Planning Specialist Group. There are so many things that I can keep talking about his experience and his expertise. So then we'll have to listen to him giving all the knowledge or sharing all the knowledge that he has. He would be talking about addressing about hard-hitting questions on biodiversity and what we need to do for its conservation. So without taking any more time, I would hand it over to Dr. Srinivasulu. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thanks a lot, Harpreet. Yeah, as it is required, I would welcome all my participants to this particular, lecture series, and this being the last of the lectures in this particular series, which was supposed to taken by Madam Subhadra, but because of some urgent, meetings that she had, so she could not come. So I'm I have taken this opportunity to interact with you and talk to you about things that are very, very pertinent during this time to understand. Can anybody tell me if at all you can see the screen? Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, hoping that you are able to see the presentation. I'll just start today's talk. I would just say that I'll be just sharing my experience of my understanding what exactly is happening all around us, and where we are exactly in terms of biodiversity conservation. Uh, IUCN Convention on Biological Diversity has declared this decade, that is 2010 to 2020, which is ending in this year, as the decade of biodiversity. And we have, promised ourselves a lot, that we are going to, do a lot of things that would ensure that the threats that the biodiversity are facing would be mitigated, and we would be able to conserve the biodiversity for future generations to come. So basically, I would be in next one and a half hours, I'll try to wrap it up within time. We would be understanding what exactly biodiversity is, why it is important, what are the different threats that are impacting the biodiversity, and we will try to understand about what is the impact of a natural process called extinction on the biodiversity these days, and then we'll try to understand what is the current scenario with respect to biodiversity, and then get Oh, I'm sorry that we had a network failure. Okay, I hope that I'm visible. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll restart the presentation. Okay, as I was just telling you that the planet Earth is the only place where we have. Am I audible? Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, as I was just mentioning that the planet Earth is the only place where we have the living organisms that have been detected, and that too we do not have these living organisms in a very wide expanse as such. It's a narrow belt of region which sustains the biodiversity. And when we talk about the biological diversity, we know that the biological diversity is differentiated or understood at three different levels. In the left panel to your side, you see that we are talking about the genetic diversity, wherein within a particular species, if you see, you see lots of variations as such. So no two human beings are similar, and no two dogs in this particular panel that you see in the photograph, they are similar. So that constitutes the genetic diversity. When we talk about the species diversity in the middle panel, if you see, you will see that there are so many different types of canids or animals that belong to the family Canidae, of which the domestic dog is the best example. And then we have so many different jackals, wolves, foxes, etc., etc. So that is a kind of constitutes something like you get into the species diversity domain. And then finally you have the ecosystem diversity, or at the landscape level, you see that there is a lot of variation with respect to all the living organisms that you may find in any given landscape. The arid or desert landscape might be harboring different types of biological entities compared to oceanic landscape or freshwater landscape, or for that matter of fact, even in mangrove ecosystems, the diversity would be different. So we understand the diversity at these three levels, and the biological diversity as such has lots of importance in for sustaining human lives. When we talk about that, we understand that all these biodiversity, all these living organisms combined together collectively would be creating something called as ecosystem services. And these ecosystem services that are being provided by biological diversity and all the living organisms can be understood in many different ways. One of the major ways of understanding them is from the cultural point of view, wherein we see that how our spiritual and religious sentiments are attached to these living organisms. We also appreciate the natural beauty and all those things. When we are talking about these things, we are talking about aesthetic values that the ecosystem provides to us. We also have seen in the past couple of presentations, we have seen that how ecotourism also helps us, and there might be negative impact of ecotourism, but we also get at a sustainable level when we are talking about recreation and ecotourism values that we can see, and also it provides us mental and physical health too. So those of us who are kind of having some kind of physical problems or mental issues and all those things, getting into nature, spending some time in nature and all those things helps us to calm our nerves and calm our body and repair our body system, etc. And when we talk about the provisioning services of the ecosystem that we get from living organisms, we see that our food comes from all the biological diversity or living organisms all around us. The raw material that we use in various things that we require comes from the biological diversity. The medicinal resources comes from biological diversity, and the fresh water that we need to sustain ourselves also is the end result of the living organisms that are maintaining these freshwater bodies, etc., etc. And when we talk about the supporting services that the ecosystem provides, we see that although we might not be directly able to appreciate these things or see these things, but you see that living organisms are uh, totally involved in nutrient cycling. Living organisms are involved in photosynthesis. Living organisms contribute in soil formation, etc., etc. And when we talk about the regulating services of ecosystem, we see that all the biological diversity and put together, living organisms put together, interacting with each other in the form of ecosystem, they would be helping us in regulating the air quality, regulating the climate, microclimate, regulating water, regulating erosion, regulating diseases, regulating pests, help in pollination, help in wastewater treatment or waste treatment, help in water purification, help in also reduce the extreme events. For example, when we are talking about the impact of tsunami and all those things, we have seen in areas where we had good mangrove forests, the impact was less compared to areas where they were denuded or they were deforested of the mangrove forest in those areas. So we see that how the living organisms keep us safe in many ways. All the living organisms on this earth are facing problems, and these come in manifold. The threats to the biodiversity is manifold, but some of the important threats I'm just going to highlight, and these are climate change. Climate change is a reality we have to understand. Climate change is happening. Climate change, there is a school of thought, or people also think that climate change is something natural that happens quite often and all such kind of things. But the climate change that we are kind of experiencing in this present era is human-driven climate change, and this is not which is natural. That is what you have to understand, and it is happening, and it is having very, very negative impact on the ecosystems, on living organisms, and on Earth in general. Deforestation is also a reality, and deforestation is happening everywhere. In this, in the 1.5 hours of talk, we might have lost thousands of acres of, at least 10,000 acres of pristine forests being converted into commercial plantation or oil palm plantation in Southeast Asia, or maybe in Amazon forest for timber extraction and all such kind of things. Deforestation is a big problem, especially in developing countries. India has lost its forest cover because of deforestation. Deforestation for conversion of forested lands for agriculture purposes, conversion of forested lands for mining, conversion of forested lands for laying linear infrastructures, construction of dams, etc., etc. There are many reasons why we are kind of deforesting our habitats. So it is a very, very big threat. Although we might be thinking that these are being done because human beings also need some kind of things for them. We need dams to be constructed and all those things. We are not against all these things. What we are saying is we need to be kind of be aware of these things and start looking at the impacts. In the long run, we have to start thinking that how impactful these activities of us would be on our own future generation. Pollution is one of the major threats that we have seen, that they have impacted ecosystems. Pollution has impacted the animals and the plants. although we have been, learning that, pollution sometimes changes, micro changes in the environment leads to adaptation of animals and plants and all such kind of things. But if these micro changes are happening at a very, very drastic level, and at an unprecedented level, what exactly happens is these animals and these organisms might not be able to adjust themselves genetically, and they might be, losing ground. And that is what is happening in these past 100 years that we have seen. Pollution at various levels, be it air pollution, water pollution, plastic pollution, sound pollution, and all such kind of things. All these things have been having negative impact on the biological diversity all around us. And one of the important reasons why the biological diversity is under threat is the enormous population pressure that we have as a species. Our human species has increased in its population so drastically that we are putting lots and lots of pressure on limited natural resources, and that's the reason why we see that, so much of negative things are happening to the biological diversity all around us. It is us who need, agriculture fields. It is us who need the commercial plantations to be done. It is us who need the plastics. It is us who need the masks against COVID virus. So what is happening? We are polluting. You might have already been aware of the fact that, the quantum of mass being washed into the oceans now. In the past 8 months, only, throughout the world, we have seen that, a new kind of, pollution that has started, and that is about our single-use masks that we are using and throwing just like that, and that are ending up in garbage dumps and ending up in our aquatic habitats. So that's something, because see, we have increased so much in number that we are putting so much of pressure on all our natural resources. So our population growth is one of the major threats that is impacting biological diversity all around us. And then extinctions. Extinctions are, like, as I told you, are natural processes, but sometimes we also see that extinctions are being driven by human activities. And one of the best examples that we can see in the past few couple of decades is the extinction of bee populations throughout the world. We see that, there is a drastic decline of bee colonies throughout the world, and this is happening because of various reasons. I would say habitat change, habitat alteration, loss of, the native flora on which these bees were adapted to live, and then increase in the non-native flora, like, alien species being introduced in a particular habitat. Then also something like, which many of us have not paid attention, only because of some kind of, commercial big industries or big economics or big business people, tycoons are involved in these kind of things. It is about the electromagnetic radiation that comes out of our mobile phone usage and all such kind of things. These have impacted many organisms, and bees are one such indicator species that we have seen in the past 20 years. Their populations have drastically declined throughout the world. So extinctions, as I told you, are natural phenomena as such. But when we start looking at all these things and start seeing that, what exactly is happening, we see that, FAO has done one study a couple of years back, and we have seen that how various threats have been reported from various stakeholders in various different continents. And in Asia, if you start paying attention, you will see that deforestation is one of the biggest threats that we have seen in Asian countries, followed by habitat alteration and loss, and followed by to some extent something called as the pollution. So if you start looking at this particular graph, it tells us that the scenario, although we cannot be just saying that putting a thumb on one particular tack and say, okay, this is the problem and we have understood the problem. problem. It's a multifaceted problem that are impacting the biological diversity. And this particular slide has been brought in only for making us aware that, if these things continue, intensification, expansion of agriculture, changes in land use, climate change, deforestation, habitat alteration, pollution, hunting, poaching, etc., etc., what all threats we have mentioned over here, if these continue to happen, these would directly impact our food resources also. That is what we have to start thinking in that manner also. Many a times when we talk about all these kind of things, people start thinking that, if tigers are not there in jungles, what difference is it going to make to us? It is not just that. It is not just that tigers are going to make difference to us, or tiger good numbers are going to, it is all interlinked. As you are aware, it is all interlinked. And every organism, every species has its own role. And we as a dependent species, we are totally dependent on all the other species and biological diversity all around us to survive. When we are in such a manner, we need to start thinking that if something happens to the biological diversity all around us, we are doomed. And this particular slide tells us that, how our food resources in future, agriculture resources in future would be impacted because of these threats that we had been always thinking that might be, impacting only the wild or non-domesticated crops and non-domesticated animals as such. But it's not the case. When we talk about extinctions, I would just like to go in, explain to you in detail about extinctions, what is happening now, presently. We know that extinction is a natural phenomena, and extinctions have been happening, and Earth has seen as many as 6 extinction. You might have heard about Earth is facing the 6th extinction now. Although I will tell you that we will stand corrected that Earth is facing the 7th extinction as such, because we have found out, scientists have found out that there was one more extinction phenomena that has happened, event that has happened that went unnoticed, and very recently it has been recognized. So Earth presently is facing the 6th extinction. So Earth has seen already, 7th extinction, and Earth has already seen 6th extinction in the past. So whenever we start speaking about extinction with concern, then people start saying that, it is a natural phenomena. People, animals become extinct, plants become extinct. This is the way life goes on Earth, and etc., etc. But there is a difference between all the 6 extinctions that Earth has faced earlier and the 7th extinction that we are seeing in the Anthropocene, which is a new terminology that has been coined recently to say that, we have human species has impacted the geology, the nature, the biodiversity, the ecosystem in such a manner that scientists have agreed to name this period as Anthropocene. That means a period of time on Earth which has been impacted by human beings in such a manner. So, as I told you, we have undergone many extinctions, as many as 6 extinctions before the current extinction that we are seeing. The first extinction has happened as long as 443 million years ago, and this happened during the Ordovician period, and that's the reason why it is called as end Ordovician extinction. And this was a time when 85% of the life on Earth became extinct. And the second extinction happened about 372 million years ago. It was a time when the Earth was dominated by fishes and fish-like animals, and then as many as 79 to 87% of all the species that were existing in the oceans became extinct. Almost all the fishes died out, and reef ecosystems, all those things have become extinct. And this was called as the late Devonian extinction. Then the third extinction was about 252 million years ago, and this is one of the biggest extinctions that Earth has seen, and this is called as the Great Dying, and it was the largest mass extinction event that Earth has seen, wherein 96% of the species existing on Earth became extinct. forests that were, that recently developed also have become extinct. And this was one of the largest extinctions that Earth has faced, 96%. Imagine, we know the fact that, life begets life. So from the 4% that were left somewhere around 252 million years ago, from the 4% of living organisms that were left 252 million years ago, so much of diversity has evolved. Although life has faced many more extinction events in the past. Almost about 201 million years ago, we had one mysterious extinction that happened, and as many as 76 to 84% of Earth species were wiped out during this extinction, which was called as end Triassic extinction. Then the fifth extinction that happened was 66 million years ago. Most of our textbooks talks about 65 million years ago, dinosaurs became extinct and all such kind of things. We are talking about this extinction, which is also called as KT extinction or tertiary extinction. And this was the time when we have seen as many as 71% to 81% of the species that were present at that time became extinct. And this was the time when the dinosaurs became extinct. One of the myths that we know about dinosaur extinction is like, we think that dinosaurs became extinct in about 65 million years ago. It's not the case. Dinosaurs became extinct. Their forms were becoming extinct over a period of 65 million years. That means that as long ago as 140 million years ago onwards, dinosaur extinctions have been seen, and dinosaurs were forming, dinosaurs were evolving, but the last blow came in 66 million years ago, when all the large dinosaurs became extinct, and the smaller ones, during that time, the smaller ones were evolving into becoming birds and mammals, and those have survived. And today we see reptiles. There are no dinosaurs, but birds and mammals that have survived that extinction period, diversifying and becoming what we are all today, as we know about things. So far we have seen that, how exactly we can see that the extinctions have happened. We see that, how the number of families of living organisms have increased, and suddenly there is a drop because of a natural event. That did not happen at a particular point of time. It was over a period of time, right? So over millions of years, that's what I was trying to tell you. When the dinosaur extinctions were happening, they were happening over a period of time. If you can look at the graph and try to understand, you can see that, how there is an increase in number, that is, say, diversification has happened, and then there is a drop in numbers. If you can see my cursor right here, you can see that how there is a drop. There is an increase, gradual increase, and then there is a drop. So these drops are showing that, the animals were facing some kind of threats, and they were also becoming extinct. So these things you have to keep in mind when we try to understand the extinction processes as such, right? And when you see after the 65 million or 66 million years ago extinction, KT, boundary extinction, you see that, there is an increase in diversity, and diversification has happened, and then suddenly now you see that there is a steep drop, and this steep drop, we are seeing that in future the diversification should have gone like this, but the extinctions are happening very steeply now. So this is where we are in the 7th extinction right over here. Although I have written 6th extinction, I'll just tell you it is not the 6th extinction, this is the 7th extinction. And why it is called 7th extinction now? Because lots of literature is available on 6th extinction. I did not update this just to have context. Now this is where we have found very recently there is a new extinction event that has happened. And this extinction event happened almost about 260 million years ago. And this is called as an Guadalupian extinction. And this was very recently discovered and reported by Rampino and Shen in 2019. You can just Google historical biology, September 9, Rampino and Shen, and you will get the article, and you can go through the article And it is convincing that, there is a lot of evidence that tells us that there was one major extinction that has happened. One of the problems that they have, Rampino and Shen and their colleagues have mentioned that we could not detect this because the two extinctions, that major extinctions that we have seen, were so close that we were not able to, correctly pinpoint and see or appreciate the fact that, there was one more extinction that has happened here in between these two events. So that's something that, scientists have evaluated, and they have reported there already 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 5th and 6th extinctions Earth has seen, and then we are under the 7th extinction phase now. So now what exactly, what is the current? I'm not going to use the number 7th or 6th extinction, but let me put it this way, the Holocene extinction or Anthropocene extinction. What exactly does it mean? This extinction is something which is at a very, very higher rate than the background rate. Now, how high is it? The rate is estimated to be 100 to 1,000 times the background rate. That means if in the past, it was in the natural extinction processes, every 1 year, if one species was becoming extinct, now every 1 year 100 to 1,000 species are becoming extinct. So that is what you have to understand when we talk about what is the impact of this particular extinction that we are facing. So the extinction that is happening in the Holocene or the Anthropocene or human-driven extinctions are very, very kind of high rated kind of thing. So if you see that, and now scientists have also predicted that the future rates would be 10,000 times higher. That means for every 1 year you might be losing 10,000 species as such. So this is not something which has been just hooked up and spoken about. There are lots of wonderful papers coming from great scientists who are conservation biologists who have been working on these aspects, who have done lots of studies how exactly these extinctions happens. And two of the major references I have shared with you on this slide. You can just note it down, and you can Google and download these papers. These papers are freely available online, and read to get insights about what exactly I am trying to say and what exactly they have said. So we all around us, we have seen that how we are getting reports of animals becoming or animals being killed either directly or because of poisoning and other kind of activities, or how animals are getting killed because they are getting choked because of the plastic pollution. And why people start thinking that why should we start caring about all these things? I would just say that imagine a world without giraffes, imagine a world without tigers, lions, and all such kind of things. Today you wonder that how dinosaurs might have looked like, how dinosaurs might have lived upon. Although our imagination has created some kind of a scenario for us, a virtual scenario for us, wherein we can see how dinosaurs have lived. Do you think that you get the same kind of feeling when you see a live animal in front of you? No. So imagine if at all, your grandchildren, you have to tell that tigers were such big cats, that were wonderful looking cats, beautiful cats, gentlemen of the jungle, etc., etc. You have to weave stories around to say, and you would not be able to, emote it out properly and say that, yes, I have seen a tiger in my lifetime, but unfortunately for you, I don't have tigers to show you. So that's a very bad scenario. The scenario is becoming so bad that there is an estimation that by 2050, most of the coral reefs in the oceans around the world will become extinct. So that is something which is a phenomena called as ocean acidification. That is also because of human activities and all such kind of things. We have seen that how we have been losing these coral reefs. In fact, the Great Barrier Reef of Australia is also undergoing the process of extinction, and it is expected by 2050 this would be all washed off. They would be all dissolved because of ocean acidification process. We had been in the past 2 decades had been seeing how exactly the frog numbers, the frog populations, frog species have become extinct because of pollution, because of fungal diseases, because of new emerging diseases, because of climate change. In fact, in South America, in many places in Amazon forest, in Chile, especially in Chile, we have closely followed this report, and our colleagues from South America have been sharing with us, saying that how a 2-degree change in the ambient temperature in the Amazon forest has resulted in extinction of as many as 12 species of frogs that live in the canopy on the tree tops. So what happens on the tree tops is, like, there you have small pools of water that gets accumulated because of daily misting and all, rainfall and all those things, and in these pools of waters these frogs breed, and these frogs used to live only on the tree top. They never came down onto the ground, and they were highly adapted species, what these tree or canopy water pools. And with 2 degrees centigrade change in the ambient temperature, these water pools started drying up quickly during the breeding period. And as a result, the populations were not able to breed. And in 6 years' time, as many as 10 species of such frogs became extinct. So that's the kind of impact that we are having. Many a times we say that kya hota hai? Nothing is gonna happen, nothing is happening, so don't worry about all these things, everything is gonna be fine, nature is going to take care of itself, and all such kind of things. No, nature will take care of itself when you stop hurting the nature. Connection gaya fir? Wait. ये आया क्या? This has come? Huh? कहाँ से रुक गया था? Are we back? Hello, somebody has to tell us.
We can very much hear you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. It's audible, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Can you just tell me? I came to know from Dr. Harpreet that I got disconnected from where? Can you just tell me which slide? I'll just go back to slide, and you can just tell me where to.
Sir, continuing.
You were never disconnected.
You were never disconnected. All slides were well.
Okay. Then it's all right. Okay, I'll just continue. Yeah, I'll just continue. Okay. So yeah, I'll just keep also my mic open, speaker open, so that I can listen to them. Yeah, right. So now what exactly we have done, as you are aware that I am also with IUCN, and we had been doing red listing process for quite a long time, and in the past 20 years of working with IUCN, and lots of people are working here, and what we have done in these years of threat assessment of species and all those things, although this is coming from 2018 report, 2020 report is getting prepared. I did not update it because of obvious reasons that many papers would be speaking about these data. So what we have done till that time, till the last report that we have published, we have assessed as many as 100,000 species. It was about 99,000, something like that, 100,000 species that we have assessed, and of which we have found out as many as 26,500 species were threatened with extinction. That means 27 to 28%. I'm just giving the update now that 28% are as many as 28% of the species that scientists have assessed are threatened with extinction. you can see in the lower panel that, as many as 40% of amphibians are threatened. They are the, greatest impacted group of organisms. And amphibians, naturally, because they have very sensitive skin, they live in two different kind of, ecosystems, and anything that happens bad with those, such kind of ecosystem might impact the amphibians directly. So 40% of amphibians are threatened with extinction. Then conifers, 34% of conifers. Again, we are talking about conifers being restricted in their range, distribution, and conifers that are, temperate in nature, and they certain conifers grow only in certain, altitudinal ranges, and all such kind of things. So you would be seeing that, lots of conifers are also under pressure, and 34% of them are under threat. Reef corals, as I told you, this number is going to increase now, but at this point of time, we know 33 to 34% of reef corals are under the threat of extinction. Shark fish and ray fishes, sharks and rays are elasmobranchs as such, 31% of fishes. Because why are they under threat of extinction? Because we are overfishing, we are killing them, we are, polluting ecosystems, etc., etc. And then we have crustaceans. Selected, not all crustaceans, only selected crustaceans have been assessed, and of that we see that 27% of crustaceans are under threat of extinction. Mammals, a quarter of mammals are under threat of extinction. In fact, for the mammal work, I was deeply involved, and we had an 8-year-long study throughout the world, and then we have published a paper in Science saying that every second species population is on decline, and every fourth species is under threat. In next 20 years, they are going to become extinct, if at all. Governments and we are not going to increase our conservation efforts and mitigate the threats on these mammals. And then 14% of birds are under extinction threats. So now when we look at the breakup, we have of those species that we have assessed, 67,222 species we have assessed of the mammals, of which we see that as many as 36,530 species are least concerned, and 12,464 species are data deficient. As a scientist, as a researcher, I am more interested in knowing about data deficient species, because I don't know what is happening to them. People do not know about these things, and these are the things all the future researchers, all young students who are listening to me should be focusing on. These are the things on which science do not have any information about. We know that it is great to work on critically endangered species or endangered species. Fundings come in. We also do all those kind of things, like we write a funding proposal for endangered species, and we also, while working on endangered species, we are focusing on data deficient species too, so that we can increase the information to find out whether or not. To tell you frankly, in the past almost about 20 years, whenever we have looked at data deficient species, we have looked at it so seriously that we brought them and made them either among the threatened species or least concerned species. The best example would be like of what we know about what is it, the 3 reptile species that were discovered in the Nagarjuna Sagar area when the dam was built. And these 3 reptile species, when we did the first reptilian assessment, we were not having any information excepting the fact that they had been collected. Basing on that, we had just to some we have made it data deficient, and to some we have just basing on the best idea that we had, best information that we had, we have put them as near threatened or lower risk species. But after its rediscovery and after we have got lots of information, today we are pushing them into either least concern or near threatened species. Like for example, you have this Platyceps bullanathi, which is very simply least concern. I would put it, because it is a snake, everybody kills it, so I would put it under near threatened. But looking at its distribution, looking at its sighting records and all those things, it became least concerned species. So what I am trying to tell you is focus on these aspects. You start looking at these aspects whenever you are trying to study any group of animals and all those things. kindly look at the IUCN threat red list and try to find out where exactly your species are there and focus on these species, especially the data deficient species. There are as many as 12,464 data deficient species that are existing in IUCN database that needs information. Important thing that you have to also pay attention towards is of the 67,222 species that we have assessed, 748 animals have become extinct and 34 species have become extinct in wild. That means some individuals are still surviving in captive condition or non-native conditions. Similarly, for the plants, although plants we have very less, although the plant diversity is more, but the plant experts and plant expertise are not coming forward to contribute to the IUCN assessment programs and all those things. In India, we also had the Indian plant specialist group and all such kind of things, but not many of us are actively involved in plant assessment. And that's the reason why we see that despite plant diversity being as good as animal diversity, we have assessed less number of plants, and these are almost about 24,230 species have been assessed. Once again, if you pay attention here, you will just see that the data deficient are 1956, least concern is 7,615, and extinct is as many as 118, and extinct in wild is 35 species. And the threatened group, you can see critically endangered is 2,722, endangered 4,123, and vulnerable 5,660. When we say, from IUCN point of view, when we say threatened group, we are talking about critically endangered, endangered, and vulnerable. These are the three groups that we put together to call them as threatened species. Now, what we have done, this is the, as I told you, it is coming from 2018 report, and this report very clearly tells us that, how our attempts to increase, our attempts to increase our knowledge about, the species assessment and all those things has also resulted in increase in understanding of threatened species. If you can just pay attention towards the green line that you see on the graph, we have assessed as many as 96,500 species by November 2018, and of which we see that there is a steady increase in the understanding of threatened species that we are aware of. So that simply means that the more that we are going to assess, the more threatened species we are going to come across. And if we have data gap there, then we might be losing on those threatened species without even knowing that they are there and they were threatened because of various reasons and they have become extinct without us even knowing about these species. And once again, if you are wanting to understand the distribution of threatened species in different groups, you can just see, for convenience, I will just focus on mammals. If you can look at the mammals over here, you see that this is the critically endangered percentage, this is the endangered percentage, and this is the vulnerable percentage. And this is where we have the threatened species. And then this is data deficient, this is near threatened, and this is least concern. You have to remember that how we have placed data deficient closer to threatened species, because we don't know where exactly they are going to go here or they are going to go here. We don't know. Okay, so that is how we need to understand this particular graph. So you can just see that among the cycads, you see that how the red is increased. You can look at red, or you can pay attention towards this bar, which is the median bar that shows that how exactly the threatened species are performing. You can see that how they are in this particular case, cycad, it's almost about at the 65%, 60 to 65% of the cycads that we are aware of are under the threat of extinction. Okay, so that is how we understand here. For example, if you look at here, this is the 25% for the mammals. So when we start to look at the trend, how we are losing, although the mammal extinctions or amphibian extinctions, we might not be greatly appreciating and seeing the trend. Since 1980s to 2006 for amphibians, we see that there is a decline. This decline, although I would not say steep decline, but there is a respectful decline that I can predict over here or I can see over here. Whereas in mammals, you say that no, nothing is happening. In birds, not much of change. But when you are looking at corals, you can see that, corals right from, say, 1997 onwards, that 96, 97 onwards, we have information. And from there, if you start looking at up to beginning of 2011 or something like that, there is a drastic decline. So this is how we can see that, the animal species diversity belonging to these different groups are becoming extinct or their populations are declining. So if we start understanding from the red list perspective, then we can very clearly see that, how many animals that we have assessed, how many have declined. This just tells you, brings in a perspective saying that 67,222 animals, 748 animals have become extinct. And these extinctions, mind it, you have to remember, we are not bringing in dinosaurs and all those things. These are the things that we are aware of in the past 500 years. That's it. We know as human beings, scientifically documented extinctions. We know this. These extinctions only we have put over here. So since the scientific revolution, since the understanding, industrial revolution and all such kind of things, we had been looking at. So to play it safe or to make you understand, I would say that, we are looking at the extinctions that has happened in the past 500 years, we have documented right over here. So if you want to know that, among the animalia or animals, what became extinct more, then we see the group to which we belong, the chordata, as many as 362 species among the chordates have become extinct, followed by mollusca. Not many of us pay attention towards mollusca, but molluscans are also kind of, under pressure of extinction, followed by arthropoda. And then we also have recorded assessment or extinction reports happening from Annelida, Nemertina, and platyhelminths. Among the chordates, if you want to know which have become extinct, although I had been focusing on mammals, saying that 25% threatened and 14 to 16% threatened in case of aves. But if you look at extinctions, you see that birds have become extinct. As many as 156 species of birds have been become extinct in the past 500 years, compared to 81 species of mammals, followed by 63 species of bony fishes, followed by 33 species of amphibians, followed by 28 species of reptiles, and followed by 1 species of your elasmobranch. In the plantae, tracheophytes have become extinct in great numbers. As many as 114 species have become extinct. And when you're looking at Tracheophyta, we see that the angiosperms or Magnoliopsida, as many as 106 species of these these plants or flower-bearing plants have become extinct. Among the grasses or Liliopsida, 6 species have become extinct. So this is the trend that we see, that when we are talking about extinctions and all such kind of things, and we are trying to predict these extinction rates and all, the more we are trying to understand, the more we are knowing about them, we see that do we know everything about all these things? So we have assumed this particular study, Ceballos et al., Ceballos and his colleagues, they have done the study in 2015 and published this study. They have said that as far as the mammals are concerned, we are sure that as many as 100% of mammals we have assessed, and we see that of these 100% of mammals, the extinction rates that has been spoken about is going the way it should go, right? When we, same is the case with birds, but in case of reptiles, we see that we expect that only 44% of the reptiles have been assessed. So that's the reason why we are now increasing our efforts. In fact, IUCN now on the background, we are doing amphibian assessments and reptile assessments. It's still going on, and only 44% of reptile assessments have been completed, and 88% of amphibian assessment is completed. But when you're looking at fishes and looking at all the other, fishes only, then you will see that 38% of fishes has been assessed. Lots of fishes need to be assessed. So if we put all the vertebrates together and try to understand that, how much of assessment has been completed, only 60% of the known diversity has been assessed. Another 40% we need to assess. And this is what is going to, impact the extinction rates and all such kind of things. And this is what is going to kind of, in future tell us about what needs to be done. So it was after having understood all these things, and these understandings are not something new. Although the studies that have quoted are coming from 2014, 2015, 2018, 2019 also, but these understandings are something that has been coming to us from quite a long time. And scientists had been crying, pleading, voicing, raising their voices, sloganeering, and doing what not to, make governments, make common people understand what exactly is wrong. And all these things, all these understanding that has culminated in 1992's, Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. The scientists have come together, as many as 1,700 scientists have come together to issue the warning to humanity, saying that, we have to change. We have to change because the way we are taking care of our earth needs to be changed, because the way we are doing it right now is very, very detrimental, and this is going to impact us very badly. And this is what they have said, that a great change in our stewardship of the earth and the life on it is required. I quote, verbatim from their, wordings out from the letter that they have issued, warning they have issued during that time. So the scientists have been speaking about, conservation. Scientists have been saying that understand the threats and try to, minimize the threats. Our population, as I have told you in the beginning, our population is increasing like, we don't have any comparison. No other species is increasing in its population like this. We are not allowing them to increase. But if you look at our species, we are somewhere around, in 2012, 7 billion. And it is predicted that in next 4 years, we'll be touching 8 billion mark. And by 2048, 2050, we'll be touching 9 billion mark. And with 7 billion people on Earth, we have so many problems. Where are we going to get the food from? Where are we going to grow our agriculture crops, and how are we going to give or sustain the homes for all the other living organisms that we share earth with? Are we going the way in that direction wherein we are thinking human species should be the only species living on earth? It is very bad scenario, and it is going to impact all the humanity very badly. So there are many ways by means of which scientists have been saying, conservation biologists, scientists, NGOs have been saying that, we need to stop all these things. We need to control our greenhouse gas emissions. We need to reduce fossil fuel use. We need to, reduce the deforestation. We need to revert the biodiversity losses that we are seeing all around us. And in past 25 years, we have been, giving warnings and just trying to understand, trying to study what exactly has happened, excepting one aspect, which is ozone depletion, which has gone down here. You can see right here where I'm, just moving my cursor. You can see that only ozone depletion has happened in the past 25 years. Rest of the things we are going in a negative manner. Although this is negative, going down, but the trend is high up. So, for example, this is going down, which is showing that vertebrate species abundance right from 1970 percentage. If you compare, it is going down. Total forest in billion of hectares, it's going down. Temperature is going up. CO2 emissions, it's going up. Human population, it is going up. Our livestock that we have, domesticated livestock, it's going up. The population is going up. Everything is going up excepting the ozone layer that we have, somehow because of, CFCs, introduction of CFCs, we have able to, repair that things. Somehow it is miracle. So what exactly is happening all around us? So I'm getting into the reality bite mode. what exactly is happening? We are making small changes which we think that is a very small change, but it is having great impact on biodiversity. It is having great impact on all of us, all around us. So if you can look at this particular photograph, comparative photograph, satellite imagery from a hydroelectric power project that has come up in the Amazon forest, you can very clearly see that what exactly has happened. You see that how the river course has changed just because there was one dam that was constructed, and it has totally changed the whole of ecosystem. Just imagine that, how many species were dependent on this particular stretch of the river, and all these things are becoming now extinct. They are going down just because we have constructed one dam, right? So the dam you can see over here, the dam site is right here. So that is how these things impact. So we don't see that almost about 80% of the river flow has been diverted, and this impacts a lot to the local diversity. The habitat fragmentation is one of the important threats that we have seen. The habitat fragmentation not only creates the barriers for movement of animals from one location to another location, but in long run, what is it going to do is it is going to create genetic bottlenecking. And if the species are not able to interbreed or cross and exchange genes and all those things, you might be thinking that because I read in biology classroom, or my evolution teacher has told me, life science teacher has told me, evolution happens in such a manner, allopathic speciation, it would lead to speciation. No, sorry, speciation takes millions of years to happen, and this would lead to inbreeding pressures. This will lead to homozygosity, and once a population is under homozygous stress or inbreeding stress, a single disease or rare allele manifestation would wipe out this particular population, and that's how we have been losing lots and lots of important species throughout the world. Now, this is how we have, in the name of development, we have laid our roads. This is one imagery that shows us that, what is the density of roads that we have on Earth. And if you can pay attention towards USA, all those things that are red, bright red, USA, Europe, most of the Europe and Japan, if you see that the roads are the road density is very, very high, right? So it's very, very high in these cases. And then roadless areas, if you want to see, then in the roadless areas, if you can see the blues are the roadless area in the tundra region, in the Siberia, in the North American region, where you have temperate regions, you have less of road. And in the Sahara Desert, in the Brazilian forests, you have less of road density. So wherever we have, look at the Indian subcontinent, you will see that only that's Thar and the Kutch region has less density of road, wherein throughout India, although we do not have, only in certain pockets in Bangalore and in those pockets we see bright red. In Delhi we see bright red. In Chennai we see bright red. In Hyderabad also we see some kind of a reddish spot, hot spot. We see these hotspots all around metropolitan cities now. Now we are even developing satellite cities and all those things. The scenario is going to change in next 10 years. We are going to become what we see in the Middle East or Eastern Europe, or maybe if everything goes fine in terms of development strategy of government of India and our Indian governments, then we would be in no time, in next 20 years, as red as the Central Europe is, or the Eastern United States of America is. So, which is very bad, in fact. If we are looking at your availability of grassland areas, I am just bringing up few slides just to emphasize on what exactly. If you look at the availability of grassland in Indian subcontinent, the grassland suitable for crop with animals, we have such big expanse. It is suitable areas are available for us, but do we really have grassland? If you look at the insect image, you can see that the grassland percentage per cell is white. We are we do not have grasslands in India. The natural grasslands have been converted thanks to the afforestation programs that the government of India has begun, saying that we need to increase the forest cover throughout India, and because of afforestation program, all our grasslands, natural grasslands, have been converted into shrublands, and shrublands being converted into the forest patches. So these are some things I have seen in my lifetime. How Kareda got changed, how Rolapadu, which is a wonderful grassland, has been converted into scrub jungle, and that has impacted the grassland species right over there. Even in fact, just right here in not Osmania University, but in Hyderabad, we had wonderful grasslands all around Hyderabad, but these grasslands have been converted either because of afforestation program or because of reality development, real estate development. We see that we have lost the grasslands. People in 30-40 years ago, we used to report presence of floricans from in and around Hyderabad. Now I recollect there was only one sighting in the recent past, in the recent 5 years, of a florican at Usman Sagar, that too by chance. And then we also have been reporting of great Indian bustard in the outskirts of Hyderabad area, in the grassland areas of Medak and other places. But now you don't see them. So that's the reality. When we are looking at the soil biodiversity index, we see that India is having good kind of soil biodiversity as such. But again, you are looking at things that are kind of what do you say, restricted in those natural biodiversity hotspots, in the form of Western Ghats, in the form of Himalayas, in the form of Indo-Burmese region, and all such kind of things. In the rest of the areas, if you see, we just are kind of managing. We are not that great, although it looks wonderful over here in case of soil biodiversity index. But again, we are in that middle range wherein our soils are getting impacted because of pesticide, increased chemical based chemical based agriculture. Our soils are getting impacted, and we see that this activity is gonna impact our soil biodiversity in next 1 decade. And when I talk about this, then the next graph or map tells you about how what are the potential threats. And if you look at the potential threat, the whole of India is high to very high. I see very high more than high, right? So we see that how exactly we have so many threats that are going to impact the soil biodiversity in coming years, and this is where we need to start focusing and start thinking about. So when we talk about all these things, what is happening all around us, we see that all these things, all these changes that are happening are resulting in unseasonal rains, floodings, droughts, forest fires, and pandemics that you and I might have never imagined that we would be in our lifetime, undergoing such situation. All these things, these are realities, and these are the things for which we have to wake up. This image is coming from 2011 flood in Bangkok, and I did not use the recent photographs from India. In Kerala, we had problem. The deluge in Uttarakhand created so much of problem, right? So Nepal had problem. So Bangladesh had problem. Bangladesh is having problem right now because of unseasonal rain, increase in seawater, etc., sea level, etc., etc. So we see that the whole of the world is being impacted by climate change. And we see, when we are talking about climate change impact, we see that these impacts are impacting our food production. These impacts are impacting our rivers. These are impacting our biological systems too. So you can just very quickly see that wherever I have put red icons, all these red icons are human and managed systems. green ones are biological systems, and blue ones are physical systems. And everywhere you can see that, there is a combination of all the three. So, and you also see that almost in all of them, you would be having two or more than two. That means medium, high, or very high impact that you can see. In very few places, you can see that, it is low or very low. But most of these things, you have to remember that let's look at it in this way. In case of Asia, you see that, the physical systems and the biological systems are being impacted because of the climate change. Although the human managed or human systems are not so much impacted as such. And among these, you would be able to see that, the the glacier, snow, ice, permafrost, and all those things getting impacted. And then in this case, the terrestrial ecosystems getting impacted. Similarly, if you see Arctic and Australasia, you see that human impacts, livelihood, health, and other economic conditions also getting impacted in these areas. And in case of small islands, we see that, climate change is impacting the marine ecosystems, and that too at a very, very high, degree. So that's how we need to understand. We can see all around on this. No place on this earth is untouched because of, climate change happening. This is something which is like, permafrost, getting thawed, and the ice shields that were available in the Arctic region, especially this photograph comes from Odo Bay in Alaska. And you see that, how right from 1949 to 2013, the continuous sheet of permafrost or ice has become kind of, melted. And you see that, how you have this molten things that are happening, and the water is getting released out of this. Now, this is the road that has been laid in 1972, and the impact of road has also been seen here. And then you can see very clearly that, the temperature increase in that area between 1949 to 2013 has resulted in melting of the permafrost here. Now, one of the biggest thing that you might be thinking, what is going to happen if at all this is going to, if permafrost melts? So it's a simple thing, it might be having algal spores, fungal spores, or viruses that had been, trapped in these, that might be detrimental for human beings. For millions of years, they have been trapped in these things. And human being is a very new species. Homo sapiens is a very, very nascent new species. And this human being, if at all it is exposed to new types of virus, novel viruses, as you have seen in corona and other things that in future we are going to, learn about all these things. We see that new viruses getting released, and these new viruses, if they get released from here and get into our system, then imagine what would happen to us. So drought is a commonality, and it is predicted that 48% of global land will become dry land by 2025. We had been seeing that, many areas are throughout the world are witnessing drought and drought-like condition. And global study has very clearly mentioned that and predicted that by 2025, 48% of the global land will be impacted by drought. When we talk about drought and all those things, fall in water table, India has been, seeing this for quite a long time. Indian society, Indian women folk have to undergo lots and lots of pains for access to the drinking water. And we see that how it has been, and it is going to become bad, or it is going to become worse in future if at all we are not going to, address these issues. Agriculture, we see, although, in many places agriculture intensification has happened, and we have seen that, lots of good research is being done in developing, climate specific cultivars or getting hybrids that are able to withstand drought or withstand flooding or withstand insect attack and all such kind of things. But again, it is not sufficient. We know that in future, the demand that we would be having with respect to the increased human population, the agriculture, intensified agriculture would also be not able to kind of, fulfill that demand. So there would be always a gap between the supply and the demand that human beings would be having for the food. And that is one big concern. No politician, no government talks about it. If you look at FAO reports, if you look at reports that are being published by United Nations, you will see that thing clearly mentioned that by 2050 there would be at least 4% variation between the supply and demand of the global food for the human population throughout the world. And when we talk about 4%, we think that 4% is nothing. By that time, we might be able to, bring in some kind of, Nobel Prize winning discovery, and we'll do something. But it doesn't happen like that. So we have to be starting to think right now. And how can we mitigate this? By controlling human population. That is what we need to do. We have to bring down our, population. We need to be very, very careful about how we are breeding. Okay, we have problems with respect to, health. And many a times we have been seeing that, zoonotic diseases have become very, very important. Vector-borne diseases have become very important. And I don't have to, tell you, we had been, although this is coming from one of the dengue control program or, malaria control program that was happening in, I believe this photograph is coming from the slums of Mumbai. What we need to, we have realized throughout India today is, or throughout the world is, it's an everyday process now because of COVID. So these are some things that are gonna come up as we are battling COVID. We are still under the pandemic. There are scientists who are not scaring us, but who are warning that there would be an outbreak of other virus or similar kind of virus-like situation for which we need to be prepared for, and all those kind of things. If you look into the scientific studies of COVID and all those things, you will see that almost about in the past almost 1 decade, people had been warning that such situation would prevail. But many of us, many of our governments, many of us were not paying attention towards all these things, and we have taken things, all such warning signs and such warnings coming from scientists in a very, very lighter vein, and then that's the result. That's the reason why we are like presently in this situation. Sea level rise is a direct impact coming out of your climate change. Temperature increases, glaciers melt, ice shelves melt, permafrost melt, and where they are going to go, they are going to increase the water level, and all the low-lying areas. Especially this photograph comes from, if I'm not mistaken, from the Sundarbans areas of Bangladesh, and all the low-lying areas of the world. Many island countries would vanish. So that is what is going to happen. And when they are, this kind of situation is going to vanish, what is going to happen is the salt water is going to seep deep into the inner land areas. And when that happens, then our freshwater ecosystem would be impacted very negatively. Then floods is, this is the photograph that is coming from, if I'm not mistaken, from Kerala, and flood is a common happening everywhere. Flood, and that too, flash floods happening, unseasonal rains happening, and all such kind of things. It is a commonality now, and all the time we had been, just blaming God on something like, 2020 is a bad year, or this decade is a bad decade, and all such kind of things. But you have to remember that, Mother Earth is saying enough is enough. I have taken enough. Now it's my time to, just give it back. And these are some small burps. Let me tell you, the Mother Earth is burping. It is not vomiting it up. If it vomits, then we would be in a very, very bad situation. Pardon my, way of putting it, but I would like to be straightforward and tell you that, these signs that we are seeing, these events that are happening throughout the world are not, a kind of reaction from planet Earth, which says that enough is enough. It's just giving us, like, it is shaking itself and saying that, okay, I'm under stress, kindly take care. If you do not, and if you ignore, then what is going to happen is, as I've just told you, okay, forest fire, wildfire everywhere. Australia has lost so much of biological diversity. Australia has lost so much. And when forest fire happens, at times, on one side, I feel that we have lost so many of, living organisms, flora and fauna put together and all such kind of things. But on the other side, look at the quantum of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and gases that we have released out of this forest fire. So imagine what kind of impact these forest fires would have if they continue to happen. These are going to add up to the climate change. This would be one of the drivers for the important drivers for the climate change. And that is what we need to start looking at. If forests are burning in Australia, forests are burning in America, forests are burning in certain parts of India, it is not because the forests are there. Sometimes people tell me, when I say that forests are burning, they say that yes, because forest is there, it will burn naturally. So it is not the case like that. It is the burning forest fire cases in a small scale is entirely different than the forest fire cases that we have seen in this large scale. And these are very, very impactful in fact. Human population increase naturally would be leading to increase in cities. And we have said that by 2050, 70% of the global population would be living in cities. And when we have in cities, this is the photograph that is coming from, if I'm not mistaken, New Mumbai, the New Mumbai Thane Road. And this photograph very clearly tells us, it's a common feature. In fact, one of the largest kind of, traffic jam that occurred was in China, and it happened. The traffic jam could not clear for 16 days. That is the kind of thing that we are talking about. So if these are the things that we are talking about, then imagine the amount of fossil fuel that we are burning. Imagine the amount of natural resources that have been converted to make these vehicles. Imagine the amount of electricity, power, and all those things that we are using in these cities to keep ourselves comfortable and all such kind of things. So all these things needs to be thought about, and all these things needs to be thought in such a manner wherein we can try to mitigate and reduce the impacts. So we have seen that how loss to agriculture sectors by the abiotic hazards like tsunamis or earthquakes, droughts, floods, etc., would lead to the decline. And we have seen in this particular graph, you can see that if you are looking at crop, floods are impacted greatly. Crop is impacted by flood greatly. For livestock, drought is impacted. As many as 86% of drought related incidents impact the livestock. Whereas fisheries and aquaculture, you can see that floods would increase or impact fisheries and aquaculture activities. And for forestry, if you can see, storms can impact as much as 64%. All these things are warning signs, and we know that these are having negative impact on our ecosystem all around us. There's a change in the forested tract throughout the world, and we can see that how many of the forests, many of the areas throughout the world are losing their forest cover. If you can look at Brazil, you can look at Indonesia, to some extent, Philippines and all those things. We see that, there is in Malaysia also, in fact, it is not showing up there very clearly, but in Malaysia also, we have greater net loss of forest cover. And this is the tract in which we will be seeing that, loss is happening. Same is the case in in Africa, in the African continent, if you can see that there's a loss that is happening. Whereas in the Indian subcontinent, of course, I would reserve my comments about all these things, but we are showing there's a net gain in the forest cover. But again, it is subject to debate and all such kind of things. But in China, India, and America, we are seeing that there is a gain that is happening in case of the forest cover. Okay, so the ocean temperatures are increasing. If you just pay attention, it is the map of the world, and the red areas are the oceans in which we are looking at the oceanic temperatures. And we see that the temperatures in the oceans are also increasing. If you just pay attention towards Indian subcontinent right over here in the Indian Ocean, you can see the alert level 2. We are into the alert level 2, and touching Indian coast, we will see that alert level 1. That is the kind of temperature changes that we are seeing, and these temperature changes would lead to something called as coral bleaching, ocean acidification, which I have mentioned earlier, and these are going to affect the corals throughout the world. And if you are looking at Great Barrier Reef right over here, you can see that how bad the situation is. So the Farida was mentioning about this Global Living Planet Index, and we see that the Global Living Planet Index since 1970, it has been going down. So between 70 to 2014, you see that it's always going down. And the average change, what is it depicting? It is depicting the average change in the population size of 4,005 vertebrate species, which has been collected based on 16,704 times coming from terrestrial, freshwater, and marine species. And the Global Living Planet Index is worsening as the years progress. So what we have done in the past 20 years, at least since 1992, and then after 2010, we have put up, United Nations has come up with Sustainable Development Goal, SDGs, and we have put these goals in front of ourselves. We have said that these are the things that we have to pay attention towards. We have to assure that there is no poverty among the human beings. There is zero hunger. There is a good health and well-being, good education, quality education being given, gender equality being taken care of, clean water and sanitation being provided, affordable and clean energy being provided, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure being paid attention towards, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, because we know that the climate change is happening. We need to take action on these particular things. Life below water, anything that is living in the waters, we have to take care. Life on the water, that means 14, 15 is talking all about our biological diversity. And then 16 is peace, justice, and strong institutions, and 17 partnership for the goals. 17 talks about everybody should come together and start working towards sustaining or realizing these sustainable development goals. So these are something that we have been telling ourselves since quite long, since past one decade we have been telling, and this is where we are standing presently. I have in the past 1.5 hours, almost about one and a half hours, I have been talking to you and saying that where we are standing. Very clearly, when we are looking at the human development indicators or environmental indicators, none of them we were able to do any kind of on-track progress. Did we end hunger? No. Progress is happening towards the target, but at insufficient rate. Did we end preventable deaths for children under 5? No. Achieve universal access to safe drinking water? No. Universal access to adequate sanitation? No. Achieve universal access to modern energy services? No. Progress is happening, but not up to the level. Whereas when you're looking at the environmental indicators, excepting to improve air quality in cities, where we see, although it is no, where we see that progress is happening, but not at that rate at which it should happen. For all the other targets like improve water quality, reduce water scarcity, limit global warming, reduce marine nutrient pollution, minimize ocean acidification, sustainably manage ocean resources, achieve land degradation neutrality, halt biodiversity loss, and all those things, we are moving away from the target in a worse scenario, in a bad scenario. These are not good. So this is what the reality is. We are like, getting into badder scenario. One of the important things when you are looking at this particular slide, you have to start looking at the last thing. I'll just hover here at the biodiversity, and you will see that we are getting into the irreversible zones, where you can see over here, irreversible zone with respect to pollinator decline, with respect to extinction of genes, species, and ecosystems. We are getting into irreversible zone. And when we are talking about what would be the impact of these things on people, we see that because of these laws, the impact on food security and zoonosis. And COVID-19 is the best example that says that, and we are projecting that it would increase in future. This particular arrow is going to increase with time. And that is what is very, very bad. We have to see that these are something which is generalized, but in some areas it would increase in future. So now you get the kind of understanding that how bad the situation is. We have to kind of pay attention towards our responsibility, and we have to always look at this particular thing and see that this particular photograph, I have just put an arrow right over there, and this photograph has been taken by one of our satellites orbiting Saturn, and we see that that particular dot is Earth, and that's the dot on which life exists. Nowhere else in this universe that we are aware of life exists, and no other place in this universe, in this solar system, is capable of sustaining life on it. You cannot be going to Mars and living on there. Maybe Elon Musk can do that, or Trump will do that, but you and I as common people cannot go there. So it is a great responsibility for all of us to take care of this particular Mother Earth, the only living planet on which life exists. If we are not going to do that, I'm sure that it would be too late to shift our course of way from this failing trajectory, and time is running out quickly. So that's the end of my talk today. I thank each one of you for having paid attention towards the talk, and I'll just close this. Where is my presentation? Okay, I'm open for questions. If at all you have any questions, doubts to be clarified. Hello? Hello? Is there anybody there, or are you able to listen to me? Yes, listen to me. Yes, okay. Yes. Okay, I have, we have just, put up the feedback form. If you have any questions, you can just punch in the chat box. I will answer. Did I scare my participants by telling facts? Did the reality really bite you? My students, some of my students, participants are my students, and they are saying that, no, sir, you did not scare us. But you have to remember that these are the realities which nobody speaks about. And this is where the younger generation needs to start thinking about and do whatever little they can do. Start living responsibly and start creating awareness. That is more important, because unless and until, see, there are almost about, say, 26 participants here listening to me. If I am able to bring in little change in these 26 participants, then my intention of speaking to you on this particular topic is fulfilled, kind of thing. I'll say, I'll think in that manner, because every time I go and I speak to people, I say that please wake up, because if we are not going to wake up now, it would be too late, and we have already lost. In fact, in 2010 we started, in 2012 we had this, convention on biological diversity happening in Hyderabad. Many of us were speaking about these things, saying that we need to, governments need to, individuals need to, NGOs need to come together and work on these aspects. Unless and until there is a mass kind of movement that happens, which is happening here and there because of many small groups talking about. It's really difficult. See, in this past 10 years, as one of the scientists who is involved with global level of understanding, I see that not much has been done. We are like getting into this false pride, thinking that we are doing good things, but it is not so. Yeah, one of the questions that has come from one of my students is like, she is saying, Jyoti is asking, in remote villages throughout many places in India, people are introducing exotic fish species rather than encouraging indigenous species. How does it affect the biodiversity? Yes, we have to remember that the fishes that had been cultivated have negative impact. Exotic fishes or any exotic animal, non-native animal has, because it is a non-native species or invasive species, it has that innate ability to adapt to the new ecosystems. And once it does that, it would be creating problem to the other indigenous species or other native species over there. Among the plants we have seen, among the fishes we have seen, among other vertebrates also we have seen these kind of things happening. Yes, they do impact. In fact, there are many studies that have been shown that introduction of tilapia into ecosystems into lakes, ponds, etc., has impacted the indigenous species. Now in India we have, even in fact in Godavari as well as Krishna river system, we have introduction of paku, that is your pirhana. Pirhana is again a very, very, bad fish. It's a carnivorous fish, and then it has been introduced into Indian waters now. And moreover, many of us, you and I would also include myself, many of us are also reason for these kind of introduction. We do not kind of, intentionally do this, but many times we encourage our families, or we encourage, our friends to get the pet fishes, set up aquarium at home because of our, belief that it would bring peace, or, give us money and all those things, ensure flow of money into home and all such kind of things. We bring in fishes which are exotic in nature, and once the fish grow to a certain level, you are not able to feed, or the child overgrows the passion of keeping these fishes. So the parents, rather than killing, because they think that, we have put our emotions in these fishes, and how can we kill, they take it and introduce, or throw it in lake water systems, and in the lake systems you get these fishes developing and breeding, and their population increases. I remember almost about in 1993, it was 93, somewhere around 93, we got a call from Zoological Survey of India, Freshwater Biology Station, that they had collected one fish specimen which they are not able to identify. So when we went over there and we looked at the fish specimen, we said, okay, this is a aquarium fish, and this people very recently have started introducing it into Indian aquaria, and it has been collected from Safilguda Lake, and that's the the hieroglyphics. It is Pardalis. What is that called? Devilfish or something like that, stonefish or devilfish or something like that. So it is now common. We are finding it in many places. When we, in fact, a couple of my research scholars are working on fish diversity in Telangana. We have seen as many as 12 to 13 exotic species being present in Telangana, starting from your gambusia and other things. Right. So Avinash says it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Avinash. I have a question with respect to ever-growing human population. In the recent past, China has scrapped the one-child policy. Will such an invasive strategy be beneficial to Indian scenario? Yes. One of the things that you have to look at is when China has introduced one-child policy long back, it was because at that time China was facing economic problem. China was not having so much of economic stability as such. At that time, their population was, in fact, now also it is one of the largest population country-wise. So, but if you are looking at the density of Chinese population with respect to the area that they have, so they can manage now, because their economy has come to a level where they are satisfied that they can allow more than one child kind of thing. So they are allowing now people to breed there. Let me put it that way. I'm ashamed. I'm a zoologist, and I always consider ourselves as one species. So they are allowing them to breed there. Whereas in India, if you see, India is having second largest population, and the population is kind of constricted in a restricted landmass. So our density is more. So in India, the population needs to be controlled. Yes, we have to go for doing something. Although the transistor case, the Sanjay Gandhi, our parents and our uncles used to talk about these things, and we have also read about that. So that was a one good way of starting the family planning thing, wherein we need to start thinking. Nowadays also I see that even educated lot are breeding like rodents. So we should not do that. What are you gaining from going to college and reading these many books and all these things? You need to understand the fact that once you have become little knowledge about all these things, how it impacts and all those things, you have to start thinking logically and do your might. I have lots of friends in my circle who have decided to have only one child or no child for a reason that they don't want to be burdened on they don't want to increase one more human being. Like that is what education needs to do to us, and we need to kind of, or not only university or college education, that is what knowledge should do to us. That is how you need to become wise, that yes, that would be our contribution to human society. I tell you one thing, we in India, unfortunately, we see that we talk about the pressure. We have seen people breeding, keeping on producing kids because they are not having male child. That is one wrong thing that we have seen in India. Again, they think that because of poverty, they think that children are their assets, they will take care in future and all those things. Wake up parents. You see how many parents, old people are being thrown. Even educated educated children are throwing their parents in old age homes. Wake up, you have to realize these things. It is not going to happen anything in that manner. So we have to wake up to that those realities, and India is going to really face problem. That's one thing that we have to start thinking. India needs to, especially those of us who are educated, we need to start thinking about controlling our population. We need to contribute to not increasing the population, but in whatever way you can control the population. Have one child or no children, adopt a child. Thank you, Avinash. Insightful questions, insightful answers, Avinash. Okay, it's like almost 1:30. Yeah, there is one question. Okay, Sheikh Hussain has just mentioned. Yeah, he was talking about. Hussain says that then when we have good laws, policies, and acts for our own sustainable and good well living, many times we human never might be, or whatever we might be doing, forget the realities. Hope this awareness spreads. Okay, Hussain, wonderful. There were no commas, no full stops. Hussain, you being my student, I can speak up like that. Anyways, I respect your sentiment. Yes, as you have rightly pointed out, it is all our responsibility and our understanding that becomes very, very important. Laws are there. Everything is there. That is the problem. Everything is there, but nobody is there to just create that awareness. People know that it is. Let me tell you. Let me rephrase myself. People do not know that it is not good to cut a tree. People are not aware that if see Salman Khan, when he has hunted that black buck and chinkara, that has become a very, very important incident that has created so much of awareness among people about hunting being banned in India and presence of Indian Wildlife Protection Act as such. So if Salman Khan can be dragged to court for such kind of activity, who are we as common people? So that kind of thing needs to get into that awareness was there. But unfortunately, what we have seen is it did not sustain. People have become more and more, and as I told you, economics and then this in Hindi we call it as mili bhagat, or hand in glove kind of attitude that we have with politicians and policymakers or policy implementers. To some extent, we see that all these wrongs are being done. One day they have to also realize, and it becomes very important that we also have, as collectively NGOs or people who are aware of these things, we have to also spread awareness to these people too, people who are policymakers, people who are implementers of these policies, or people who are the caretakers of our biological diversity. We have to tell them that, why it is important, although they might be knowing, but at times like Kumbhakarna, we have to, or like Hanumana, we have to, tell them what their strengths are. We have to keep giving them these doses of saying that, yes, you are capable of, taking action on that particular politician / mafia / this / that, and all such kind of things. So we have to tell them about their responsibilities. Only then maybe they might be able to do it. Okay, that's wonderful. Then if that's I'll there are no more questions. If you are happy with it, then I would like to kind of close here as a presenter and get into the mode of the person who has called in for this particular Wildlife Week celebration lecture series, and would like to place on record my heartfelt thanks to all you participants for having participated in this lecture series. Hope you have got benefited by the insights, expertise, and knowledge that our esteemed resource persons have brought to the table, and you interacted with you. I would like to thank all my resource persons. I'll go backward. So I had yesterday I had Imran Siddiqui, I had Ravi Kant, I had Sriram Reddy, I had Farida Temple, and I also had who was the first speaker? I'm forgetting. Avinash. Avinash is right in front of me, right over here, and I'm forgetting Avinash. Avinash, for having accepted my invitation and have come on this platform and interacted with you all. And I also thank the administration of Osmania University, especially my in-charge Vice Chancellor, Sri Arvind Kumarji, and my registrar, Professor C.H. Gopal Reddy, OSD to the Vice Chancellor, Professor T. Krishna Rao, and Sri Naveen Mittal. He is the Commissioner for Higher Education, and he is also responsible for the RUSA funds under which this particular center has been established, and these activities are being taken up under the center for encouraging me for doing these kind of activities. One of the important aspects of the center is not only doing research, but also creating awareness. And this is the responsibility that we are trying to, do in this manner, wherein we can get in touch with all of you and create awareness about nature, biodiversity, and conservation issues. Then I would like to thank all my staff in the center, especially Dr. Harpreet Kaur and Dr. Chetan Kumar, as well as my colleagues from Department of Zoology, my head department, Professor K. Pratap Reddy, and other colleagues from Professor Pratap Reddy is now principal of the college, and head department, Professor Jitendra Kumar Nayak, and other colleagues from my department, and my scientist, women scientist, Dr. Bhargavi from the Department of Zoology, and Mr. Aditya Srinivasulu, who had been helping us in doing this setting up of meet and all those things. And we are creating the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is already up there, and the talks have been already loaded onto the YouTube channel. And I have shared yesterday the link of the YouTube channel. Today also, if it is possible, I'll share the YouTube channel link. And when I'm sending you the participation certificate, I would also be, including the link of the YouTube channel. We also have the Facebook page where you can, get in friends. I don't know how they say it, but subscribe. What all those things, I don't know how to say all those things, but we are getting into the digital mode because it is the requirement, and we are thinking about also being available on the digital platforms, both on YouTube as well as on Facebook and as well as on Instagram. We are getting into those modes too, and the website would be released very soon, and then from there you can get in to know about many different activities of the center. But we'll keep you posted. The YouTube, Chetan has just shared the YouTube channel link. You can just go there and subscribe to it, and also see the videos that we are posting right over there. So last but not the least, I would like to also thank all of you, although I started with you, thanking you all. And now I again thank you all for being with us. Not just because you wanted to be here and this particular lecture series became a success. It's not because of that I'm thanking you. It is because of your interest in biodiversity and wildlife that has brought you over here to sit and listen to our experts. That is why I'm thanking you. Keep this interest burning within you, for a reason that this is gonna give you peace. This is going to ensure that you as a species is going to live longer than other species. We are not going to doom ourselves by being fools or letting the fools amongst us to overtake us. So we have to create awareness. Thank you very much for all the good things that you are doing. Thanks once again, all of you.